Hello and welcome to today's Verified Live. We start in Florida, which is bracing itself for what could be the worst storm in 100 years. There are huge traffic jams across the state as more than 5 million people respond to evacuation orders ahead of Hurricane Milton. We'll be live on the ground in just a moment, but let me just show you first the pictures from space because it gives you an idea of the size of this monster storm. Officials think it could still double in size before it makes landfall. Well, this is the live tracking shot from the National Hurricane Center. The Category 4 storm is due to hit tonight. It has already brushed past Mexico, where it's caused large-scale flooding. Well, these are the pictures on the Florida Peninsula. Relative calm, but they're expecting wind speeds of 160 miles per hour and 3 to 4 metre storm surges. Let me also show you the pictures from Tallahassee, because in the next few minutes we are expecting to get the latest briefing from Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis and other emergency officials. We will carry that live as soon as it starts. But let's start this hour by going to my colleague Sumi Somaskanda, who's there on the ground for her. And Sumi, tell us where you are first of all and what is happening all around you.
Yeah, Matthew, we are here in Miami, so that's actually just about a 3.5-hour drive from where the storm is expected to make impact. But we got in here last night. It is actually one of the few airports in the area that is still open. And you can probably hear helicopters above me, and you can see behind me the trucks coming in and out. This is a staging grounds and evacuation center. The evacuation center is a bit further behind us. We were able to cross by there a little bit earlier in the day. We were able to see inside, and there are cots set up. There are crates for pets. They didn't want us filming inside out of respect for the privacy of people who have been evacuating here. But just to give you a sense of how big this storm is, as we follow some of these trucks in, this storm is so big that you have people who have evacuated 3.5 hours away here to Miami. And you see these trucks going in. We're going to be telling you a little bit more about the evacuation preparations here in a little bit. But just to remind you, Florida authorities are saying this is the 11th hour. For those who have not left that Gulf Coast area that's going to be heavily impacted, now is the time to do so. And we've been speaking to people, of course, who have said that they want to evacuate, they have evacuated, but there are those who have chosen to stay in their homes as well. My colleague Phil McCann has been speaking and looking at some of those preparations and those people in the way of the storm.
So right now on 7 News, Florida is bracing for Hurricane Milton this morning.
Milton continues to be a dangerous Category 5 hurricane, expected to bring life-threatening storm surge and dangerous winds along Florida's Gulf Coast.
Time is running out before the storm makes landfall.
Florida has been warned, and people living there have been preparing and leaving in the state's biggest evacuation effort in years, ahead of what forecasters say could be the worst storm to hit in a century.
It's been pretty crazy. Even people that are from Tampa and are from Florida have told me that this is not normal.
Really anxious. We have 2 young kids. It's scary.
Parts of the state are now eerily quiet, apart from the warning sirens. This time,
Apologies to break out of that, but there you see Florida's governor just started that news conference.
Throughout the west coast of Florida have been working nonstop now for weeks to prepare and respond to Hurricane Helene, and then now to prepare and respond to this new major hurricane. The common virtue has been dedication. Dedication to the task at hand, dedication to responding to help our fellow Floridians in danger, and dedication to ensuring that Florida weathers this storm and emerges stronger on the other side. We are prepared and we will respond. I've spoken to the president. We remain in regular contact with FEMA, and we are marshaling all available resources to be able to prepare and respond to Hurricane Milton. I also want to thank the 20 other states who are assisting Florida ahead of the storm. This is just what we as Americans do. We've had opportunities to help other states in the past, including most recently in Western North Carolina, and I think it shows the spirit that these states are stepping up and providing really valued support. We still have a state of emergency for 51 Florida counties. Hurricane Milton is still a major, very strong hurricane. It's currently a Category 4 hurricane. with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. That is just a whisker shy of a Category 5. And while there is the hope that it will weaken more before landfall, there is high confidence that this hurricane is going to pack a major, major punch and do an awful lot of damage. As you can see behind me, the Florida Division of Emergency Management is fully deployed, fully active. This has been a footing now for over 2 weeks, given both of these storms. The state is actively fulfilling over 1,500 missions. We've delivered massive amounts of supplies, meals, water bottles, sandbags, tarps, generators to be able to help our local communities respond to this storm. We've also deployed more than 11,000 feet of flood protection systems and erected them around critical infrastructure like hospitals, wastewater treatment facilities, and electric infrastructure. Generators have been deployed at shelters and to support sheltering operations. Starlink internet has been deployed across the entire state of Florida. We have surged an additional 600 ambulances, and they are currently in operation helping in the effort. The state of Florida has considerable fuel reserves ahead of Milton, and it's staged, and they will be utilized as needed following the storm. We've already dispatched a lot of fuel in the lead up to this, but we still have on hand 1.6 million gallons of diesel and 1.1 million gallons of gasoline. There is no, right now, fuel shortage. However, demand has been extraordinarily high, and some gas stations have run out. To be able to help ameliorate that, the Florida Highway Patrol has facilitated 106 long-distance fuel tanker escorts with sirens getting through traffic, totaling almost 1 million gallons of gasoline from ports in Tampa, Jacksonville, Everglades, and Manatee, and they are continuing with the fuel escorts as we speak. I'm in contact with the ports on the west coast of Florida. We'll see how this storm impacts those. Clearly, there's a chance that you could have a major impact on Port Manatee as well as on Port Tampa Bay. That could interrupt their ability to receive fuel shipments. And so we're working on contingencies to be able to keep fuel flowing throughout the state of Florida. As we saw this new storm develop, it was clear that a lot of the hardest hit areas on the west coast of Florida from Hurricane Helene had not had major, robust debris removal contracts in place or operations in place. Some of these contractors were good. Some of them were not getting the job done. So you had a major hazard on barrier islands in Pinellas, Manatee, and Sarasota County. So this weekend, I authorized mandated 24/7 debris removal. We took all the Florida Department of Transportation and other agency vehicles, brought them from all across the state, and they are engaged in other missions as their normal course of business, and dedicated it to debris removal. So in a little over 48 hours, and they were working all through the night, in the wee hours of the morning in places like Manatee, Sarasota, and Pinellas. They were able to remove 55,000 cubic yards of debris. So that's over 3,000 truckloads of debris. And it's our estimation that on those barrier islands, they were able to make a dent in the debris and reduce it by about 50% just from what Jared Perdue and the other agencies were able to get done. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in that. It did not stop since this weekend. We're now in a position where it's likely the conditions are going to deteriorate, and so we're going to have to wind that down. But they did make a difference, and there will be less damage from this storm as a result of getting that debris out than there otherwise would have been. The Florida Department of Transportation is staging the following assets ahead of the storm: 156 bridge inspectors, 328 cut and toss personnel, and over 1,500 pieces of heavy equipment. Florida National Guard, Florida State Guard, Florida Fish and Wildlife, and the Florida Highway Patrol have activated additional personnel in advance of the storm. We have hundreds of state search and rescue personnel on hand, 26 total teams. They are currently embedded in the potential impact sites along the West Coast to begin immediate rescue operations as soon as the storm passes. The National Guard is deploying 6,000 Florida National Guardsmen as well as 3,000 National Guardsmen from other states, and so we thank for the support on that. We have 34 search and rescue aircraft, and that includes some of the aircraft that have been brought in from other states. We have 500 tactical vehicles, including 180 high water vehicles, aerial, water, and ground National Guard search and rescue teams. This is the largest Florida National Guard search and rescue mobilization in the entire history of the state of Florida. Our Florida State Guard is also deploying almost 200 soldiers, 10 maritime crews, 3 high water UTVs, 2 UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, 4 drone teams, 15 cut and toss crews, 2 amphibious rescue crews. We want to thank them. I mean, this was just a dream a couple years ago that they would be involved, and there was a lot of unfair criticism when we stood it up, but they have made a huge difference in this hurricane season. They're going to continue to do it here. We have also worked with the utilities to have the largest staging of utility workers and linemen in advance of the storm any time in American history. We will have in Florida, by the time the storm arises, over 50,000 linemen, and those linemen are being brought in from places as far away as California. So as soon as that storm passes, you're going to see the assessments and the power restoration efforts commence immediately. Additionally, the state of Florida has assisted with the evacuation of 352 healthcare facilities in the potential path of the storm. 16 hospitals have been evacuated. The state veteran nursing homes are currently located that are in the cone, are all accepting families of their residents to shelter with them. All of those are hurricane proof. All of them are outside of flood zones, so if you do have a family member that's in one of our state nursing homes, you can go and you can shelter with them. That's a safe option, and I know the veterans would appreciate it. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement is directing deployment of additional 500 out-of-state law enforcement officers. These officers will help respond after the storm to maintain law and order, and there is going to be a lot of damage from this storm. There's going to be opportunities for people to try to take advantage of that. My message to you is don't even think about it. We are going to come down hard on you. You are not going to you're going to regret that you tried to do that. So I appreciate all the other folks from out of state who are coming in to supplement this effort. We need to maintain law and order. FDLE's mutual aid team is managing more than 70 active law enforcement missions, including identifying post-storm response squads, and these are really important missions, and we're happy for that. So we're preparing for Milton, but we're also still recovering from Hurricane Helene. When Hurricane Helene hit, we reactivated the Florida Disaster Fund. We are now accepting donations into the Florida Disaster Fund for both storms, both Helene and for Milton. This is a private fund. It's affiliated with the state in terms of disaster, but it's tax deductible donations. We distributed $63 million after Hurricane Ian to help people largely in Southwest Florida. This is something that is really, really important. So I've directed Volunteer Florida to keep the fund activated for Hurricane Milton. I want to thank, there's already been millions raised for Helene. I want to thank Lennar, Wells Fargo, Walmart, and Publix for making really significant donations, and I know there's going to be a lot more that are going to want to do it.
Well, they were going to come away. We've heard the key lines there from Governor Ron DeSantis saying we are prepared and we will respond. He talked about the evacuation orders for 51 different areas. He said the latest on the storm, it's a whisker shy of a Category 5 storm. He said vital infrastructure is being protected and they're going to operate the largest search and rescue operation in Florida's history. So the latest there at that briefing. We'll keep an ear on what those officials are also going to say in the coming minutes and come back to it if there's anything significant. But let's go back to Sumi, who's in Miami. And we broke away, Sumi, to hear all of that. Ron DeSantis going through the preparations being put in place. And that's what you're seeing all around you, isn't it?
Absolutely. We heard there more about the breadth of the preparations that Florida has put in place. We know, of course, that they have been warning about the storm for days now, telling people in the storm's path to evacuate. Well, as we heard from the governor there, they've also been making these preparations with Florida national and local police, with the Florida National Guard, who will be underway here in massive number. And where we are, something that the Florida governor just mentioned, he said there will be 50,000 linemen. These are people who are taking care of power and trees. And we're at an evacuation center and staging ground in Miami, where that's exactly what they're working on. And I have the person who's supervising this operation here, Jessica Paolo, who's with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Just give us an idea of what the people here are doing. We see these trucks behind us.
Well, basically what they're doing is that the linemen are getting prepared to go out for the storm, after the storm. And what we do as A&A and Associates, we make sure that they're organized. We do their staffing for them. We are a staffing company. I'm from the headquarters. And what they do is they line up, they go out, they have calls, and they're taken from one location to the next, just to be sure that when it's time, that they're prepared and ready and on staff.
Do you have a sense of how many people, linemen, are here to be ready for power supplies, down trees?
Yes, well, I'm actually told it's about 1,000. And it's usually anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500, from what I'm told, yes.
How big is this operation compared to anything you've seen in the past?
This is a this is one of the biggest ones that I think I've seen so far. You know, and I travel with corporate, so we usually are the ones that do the staffing and make sure that they're secured, and this is pretty big.
You were telling us that some of the other staging grounds, there are things like sleepers. I mean, tell us what that is, what that provides.
Yes. Well, chefs, anything that has to do with living quarters. It's the bedding, the sleeping, the towels, the showering, bathrooms. It's kitchens, it's everything that you can possibly name up. And what we do is we make sure that all of it goes well, it runs smooth, and that everyone is doing things in order, and that's what we do. And we're a company that's been in business for 25 years, and we make sure that these things are done according to FPL.
So as we see some of these trucks go by, just tell us exactly what they will be doing before and after the storm.
Well, right now, what they're doing, they're getting this stuff prepared. They're gassing up. They're making sure all of their equipment is ready, that they have all of their gear. And we have a gassing location over here. We have material that's over here. It's a lot that actually takes place at one time. So they're actually going in format. From here, they're lined up, ready to go, and then they wait for their calls. Everyone is here waiting for their call and what location to go to next. So they follow the eye of the storm, they're behind the eye of the storm, and they go site by site, wherever they're called to.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much. Really great to have you with us. We know you're very busy here this morning. And Matthew, as you heard there, those preparations have been ongoing all morning. And we mentioned that there is also an evacuation center here behind us. Of course, we couldn't enter the center. There are people who have evacuated here. But it's important to know that concerns are very, very high, as you just heard from the Florida governor. Concerns over two things: the storm surge, which could be up to 15 feet, about 4 meters, as you've been saying. And that really could affect those people in the low-lying areas and those along the water. And then also that precipitation, up to around 18 inches expected in some areas. That can cause flash flooding, as we know, so it can sweep people away if they're still in their cars. So again, the message from Florida authorities right now, before the storm hits, it's important to evacuate and get to safe ground, Matthew.
Sumi, thanks so much. More from Sumi throughout the course of our programme. Let's speak live now to Simona Khan, who lives in Tampa. And Simona, thank you so much for joining us here on BBC News. Start by telling me and our audience, are you staying or are you leaving?
We are currently staying in place. If the storm does go up to a Category 4, we will probably still stay. But if it's a risk of being higher, then we will probably leave to a friend's place or a shelter.
I know you're really close to an evacuation area. You will have heard your president say these are decisions between life and death. You had Tampa's mayor saying if you stay and you're in that evacuation area, you're likely to die. Does none of that make you think perhaps for this one I should go?
Not really. Most of my neighborhood is staying. We are not at a risk of flooding in the area. It's really the threat from winds and trees coming down. If the storm had been Category 3 or less, then we'd have been roaming more freely in the house. But now it's coming up to a Category 4. We are strategically positioned in the house in a safe place, and that's where we will stay. So it's an educated decision.
I know you got 4 kids. Tell me, what sort of preparations have you been doing in the house to try to make yourself safe?
We've stocked up on food, on liquids. The home, I renovated it a year ago. We have impact windows, we have a metal roof, and we have a home generator. So those things combined actually give us quite a safe place to stay in. The only downside then is if trees fall onto the property, that's our only negative factor that would lead us to have to, evacuate. But we will be packing emergency bags and be ready to go. The car has gas in. That was really hard to get hold of 2 nights ago, but we are ready to leave should we need to.
Final quick thought. Are you scared, worried, nervous? What have you told the kids?
Really, they are ready to go. We've never been anything through this intensity before. Everything that's passed through before, even with Helene, we were not scared. This is really something quite different. So they will be ready to up and leave if we need to go.
Simona, thank you for talking to us, and stay safe in the coming hours.
Thank you.
That is just one person in the Tampa area. Let's speak now to Nicole Moore, who's the national spokesperson for the American Red Cross. She's in Tallahassee in Florida. Thank you for being here on the program. What is it like preparing for something of this magnitude?
Well, I can tell you the American Red Cross has been on the ground in Florida and the Southeast for more than 2 weeks in response first to Hurricane Helene and now Milton. And as we're waiting to understand what these impacts from Milton are going to be across Florida, there are now shelters open across the state for folks who are evacuating. And I cannot stress enough how important it is. If you are being told to evacuate, you absolutely need to follow these orders. We do not know what this storm could bring. We know it will be dangerous, and we want folks to stay as safe as possible. Now,
is it not too late? Because I've read some people saying they think it is too late. There are traffic jams on some of the major roads. There's a lack of gas that people have been complaining about. Some people are making the assessment that now they've left it too late. Are they wrong?
You should be following the advice of your local emergency management. This is going to vary county by county, and the Red Cross and county and government and local partners have shelters open throughout the state. Safety is going to be your first priority. So anybody who's making this decision right now really should be talking with their emergency management. But our Red Crossers are on the ground. I'm here in Tallahassee. I can feel the winds picking up while we are not in a direct impact area. I have seen the folks, I've met the folks who are evacuating and who are staying in the northern parts of Florida. And we're happy to see them here and want them to stay as safe as possible.
Give me an idea of the sort of numbers of people you're actually trying to deal with, trying to help.
Well, we've got folks in shelters after Hurricane Helene, hundreds and hundreds of folks in shelters, right? We know large numbers of people will be taking refuge in these evacuation shelters as they ride out the storm. And once we understand the impact from Hurricane Milton, that's when we're going to know truly what help is needed, right? Once we understand what the damage looks like, what the needs are. The Red Cross has nearly 1,000 folks on the ground in Florida right now, with more on the way as we start to unpack what this disaster looks like.
And you mentioned it right at the start. The immense problem here is that you're dealing with something that could be the storm of a century after a hurricane that's only so recently hit, and you're having to deal with the aftermath of that.
Our hearts are heavy with this. The American Red Cross, we are a disaster response organization. This is what we do. This is what we train to do. This is what we prepare for. However, it doesn't make it any easier because remember, the people who are evacuating, those are our friends. Those are our neighbors. Those are our family members. This is very real for them. And so anything that we can do along the way, this is not an ideal situation to see 2 back-to-back hurricanes. But in light of the climate crisis that we're facing, the Red Cross knows we have to respond more frequently, quicker, and more rigorously than we may have ever responded before.
Nicole, I know you're hugely busy on a day like today, so we're grateful for your time here on BBC News. Thanks for joining us on today's programme. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do stay with us because we have the latest on the ground from all of our teams and guests and people there who are dealing with all of this. These some of the live pictures as that storm, it's Category 4 now, heads in, due to hit at 2 a.m. local time.